Welcome to Miracle Network's Wednesday meditation. I'm so glad you're all here to share this time together. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to click the subscribe button below to receive updates and notifications. Today we're joined by Nick Arandes, who will lead us in meditation. Then we'll have 20 minutes of silence, and after that we'll open it up for sharing. Over to you, Nick.
Okay, welcome everybody. And today I'm going to start with the introduction of A Course in Miracles because that is how it's going to lead through this process. And before we begin, we're going to begin with when the Course states, this course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. And herein lies the peace of God. Well, we're going to look at the practicality of that. And the way I'm going to use the word or concept meditation is that meditation is our life. It's not something that we're going to do for 20 or 30 minutes. It's literally life itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first couple of sentences of that extract, and then we're going to go with that so we can get into our, call it process or whatever you want. And it's this. It says, nothing real can be threatened. What is real? In reality, real, capital R, would be our sense of, would be what we are, which is not human, is beyond human. And nothing unreal exists. It'll be that which seems to overlook that. So let's see how we can see that in our life experience, so you can see how we can translate that into our experience. So you can close your eyes because I know this is part of how we're used to do it. Well, it's perfectly fine. So you can close your eyes. There's no need to do it with the eyes closed, but I think that with your eyes closed, so there's no distractions, we can begin the process. So I invite you to simply relax and just be. Now, nothing real can be threatened. What is real to you right now? And what is real is experience. It's just experiencing. That is real. You cannot say, I am not. You cannot say, I don't exist. You know that you exist, not as a person, but you know that you experience yourself as existence. You exist, you are. You don't need to think about it. That existence cannot be threatened by anything. Nothing. It doesn't matter. There could be pain and there could be pleasure. There could be changes in the world of appearances. There could be all sorts of things happening, and yet that experience itself can never be threatened by anything because it is what you are. Okay? Now, nothing unreal exists. What is it that it's unreal? Thoughts. See, thinking. Thoughts do not exist. They're just simply neutral images. That means absolutely nothing. So, what I am, which is pure existence, which is what's your experience right now, it is what it is. It's very simple. That cannot be touched by anything. Nothing unreal exists. What is unreal? Thinking, thoughts, they are unreal. When you come to that realization that the only thing that I'm troubled by is thinking, not my parents, not my family, not my body, not the government, nothing. I'm only troubled by thinking, which is non-real. I didn't say you will not think. I didn't say you will not think. I simply said that thoughts will appear because we have no control over that. Thoughts will appear, and that's the way it is. That's life. But you experience itself, you, which is non-dual, it's cannot be talked about it, that cannot be threatened by anything, by any thought, nothing. Nothing real can be threatened. I am that experience right now. Do you see? It's pure experiencing. That's what you are. Always. That's it. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Thoughts, they're just images. They're just passing through, passing clouds that we somehow give them power. When that, it's really okay. We continue. We got interrupted. So as I continue, it's going back to right now. Here's the question I'm going to ask you. Right now, you cannot deny your experience. That's what is real. That's real. Within the experience we're having, not in real capital R, but within our experience, you cannot deny your experience that it's real. Okay. So here's the question. Right now, right this moment, what is your experience if you don't identify with any thought that crosses your mind? I didn't say the thoughts will not be there. I did not say that. They will be there because that's what the mind does. They appear. But what happens if you don't identify with those thoughts? What is your experience? If you answer that question, you missed the mark. If you say peace, no, because peace is a concept. You see, that's the mind trying to somehow hold on to its identity. What you are is beyond concepts. That's what the course itself tells you. That is beyond the scope of what the course can teach you. That's what it says. This course cannot teach you the meaning of love, you see, which is what you are. is simply trying to remove the obstacles. And the obstacles are thoughts, or should I say, believing in them. So right now, if you don't identify with your thinking, with the thoughts, if you don't believe in them, what is your experience? Once again, if you answer the question, you're going back to the mind. See, that's what is beyond words. If you say it's peace, that's a concept. If you say it's tranquility, that's a concept. You see, you just simply are. That's what it says love is, God is, I am. That's where the Course, according to my practice and my understanding, is pointing to. Just be. That beingness is what you are. It's what is what we are seeking our whole life through acquisition of things, through trying to changing things, and yet you're resting in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read quotes from the Course as Jesus reminds me of the simplicity of this, where he's pointing to. Beginning with chapter 4, Jesus or Holy Spirit says, if you're willing to renounce the role of guardian of your thought system and open it to me, I will correct it very gently and lead you back to God. What is it telling me? If I am willing to let go of my interpretations of what I think I know, if I am willing to simply let go of that, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, love, will take care of the correction. And it's going to lead me back to this experience, you see? It's going to lead you back to where you already are. Let me give you another extract from the Course. When a thought gets in the way and we begin to identify with thinking, Jesus says, from chapter 14, when your peace is threatened or disturbed in any way, say to yourself, I do not know what anything, including this, means. And so I do not know how to respond to it. And I will not use my own past learning as the light to guide me now. It's another way of saying the same thing. If I don't identify with the thinking process, then I rest in what I already am. Here's lesson number 5. I am never upset for the reasons I think. You see? Let's go to lesson 23. The idea for today introduces the thought that you are not trapped in the world you see, because the world that you see is your thoughts, you see? Because its cause can be changed. This change requires first that the cause be identified and then let go so that it can be replaced. What are the causes? Thought, you see, is a mind. That's the cause. I identified, okay, I'm identifying with a thought. That's the whole problem. So let it go so it can be changed. As that lesson continues, the first 2 steps in this process requires your cooperation. The final one does not. Your images, see, thoughts, have already been replaced. By taking the first 2 steps, you will see that this is so. Let's put it to the test right now. Is there anything in your life, any problem, or you call it a problem, which is just a thought interpreting, but anyway, is there any issue you're dealing with? It doesn't matter what it is. If there's such a thing, notice that by judging it, which is thought, that's what labels it a problem. But what if you did not identify with the thought? Would it be a problem? No, it would be just what is. Lesson number one, nothing means anything. And if you do not give meaning to anything, what is left? Experience, that which is real, you see? This is not something you do 20 minutes every day. This is your whole life. When this is clearly seen, you no longer have problems. Yeah, the character may have problems, but you don't, because you are. And let's now finish with forgiveness. The meaning of forgiveness, according to the Course. It says, forgiveness, on the other hand, is still and quietly does nothing. It offends no aspect of reality, nor seek to twist it to appearances it likes. It merely looks and waits and judges not. You see? In other words, whatever seems to be happening, whatever you seems to be perceiving, doesn't matter. It's fine, because you are. Right now, you are being. While your eyes may be closed, when you open your eyes, you're still being. You are always being. The only problem, quote unquote, is that if you go identified with the mind is going to sell you that this moment is not as it should be. Things should be differently. And believing that is what seems that it takes us away from the experience, which is the only thing real. We're going to do one more exercise, and then we just enjoy the beingness. Right now, if there's an issue or something you're dealing with, whatever the case may be, doesn't matter, which is just a thought. I guess by now you know that. What I want you to do is I want you for now, just relax into this moment. And I want you to pay attention to whatever you're hearing. For example, as I rest in this moment, I put all my attention to hearing. I could hear birds. There's not so much I can hear right now. It seems to be pretty quiet. But in your case, maybe you can hear other things. You could hear the neighbors, maybe, or you may hear somebody in the next room. Or if you're outside, you may hear something. It doesn't matter. But I want you to put all your attention in hearing. Whatever you're hearing, put your attention there. And just see. Now, let me ask you. While you were hearing, or hearing was happening, because it's not even you who's doing it, but it's just a way of play of words. While all the attention was going to hearing, did you notice that the problem that you thought you had disappeared? Did you notice that? It didn't exist. It's not that it disappeared, it didn't exist. Because all the attention was in hearing. Well, that's life. But we're so used to, while all the senses seems to be operating at the same time. Right now, the heart is beating. You're not doing the heart beating. The blood is flowing. You're not making any of this happen. The body could be sensing things, but the attention seems to be always going to one of all of those activities, which gains protagonism. Guess who activity gains the protagonism? And that's why we think that we're afraid, we're worried, concerned, and all that stuff. The mind, you see? And that is not theory. This is not esoteric. This is pure experiencing. So during the rest of this meditation or exercise, whatever you want to call it, I don't want you to do anything with the mind. Leave it alone. Let her think. That's what the mind does. But what I'm inviting you is to just be and be conscious how easily, or just because of habit, we're used to identify with the mind. And if you believe what the mind is thinking, you experience the consequences. But if you don't believe what the mind is thinking, you'll experience the peace that passes all understanding. In other words, you will experience always what is real. And that cannot be threatened by anything. And when that is really integrated, now you can even laugh at the thoughts because they can have no effect on who you really are. So now just be, and let's enjoy this rest, which we could say resting in peace. It's not something that needs to be put on a tombstone. It's the way we can live, literally. Stop identifying with whatever the mind is entertaining. So let's rest in peace, not only until the end of this exercise, but for the rest of our quote unquote human life. Okay, I guess the timing was perfect. I wasn't even expecting that. And that's life. This is life. This is it.
Open your eyes and come back into the room. We have 11 minutes left for your sharing. If you'd like to share, raise your hand and I'll invite you to take yourself off mute.
Well, if nobody has anything to share, I got to share this story with you. Um, when I was when I began the process or the when I said, okay, you can say it, you can do it with your eyes closed or open or something. I thought that that was giving the signal that that's when the meditation started. So then when the 20 minutes passed, which everything I was talking, so I didn't realize that when you rang the thing, I don't know if you thought that maybe that's when it was starting, when actually I was kind of in it. But the story is that if you notice, my phone rang, and that's a guy who's going to be fixing something over here. So when the phone rang, I realized, oh, let me shut it down. But then I turned the phone off, thinking I'm not going to let that bother, so make sure that it doesn't bother. But my ignorant internet signal comes from the phone, so literally I shut the whole Zoom down without realizing it. And it's funny watching how life unfolds, you know, and it's kind of an exercise to see that that's just that's a happening. I didn't make it happen, nothing, and I didn't even. No, it just what happened. But notice what happened if identified with the mind can begin to tell all sorts of stories about it and everything. So in a way, that's life. We have all sorts of experiences. That's what life is. I don't know what's the next thought I'm gonna have. Do you know what is the next thing you think is gonna happen? Do you know what is the next feeling you're gonna have? You see? It's just always the mind trying to take protagonism. And Jesus says all the time, just don't believe anything you think. Surrender your thought system to me. I'll take care of everything. You don't need to do anything. I don't ask much for you. And that's kind of like what what this whole exercise was about. When you don't believe the content of the mind, what problems could you possibly have? Life is lifing.
Dennis, take yourself off mute.
Thank you for that, Nick. The silence was louder than the thoughts.
Thank you, thank you. That's a very good point, because when sometimes we think in terms of the tendencies, I need to be in silence. What I usually emphasize is that silence um is not absence of noise, it's absence of judgment. Noise will always going to be there. Hearing happens, and the mind can be very, very active, you know but if I don't judge it, if I just let it be, that's silence. Even when the mind is going blah blah blah, even when the kids are screaming, even when it doesn't matter, that's fine. If I don't make any judgment about it, this shouldn't be like this. Oh, I gotta stop the mind. No, let it be. That's fine. It'll shut up when it's supposed to, if it's supposed to. That attitude, interestingly enough, is what leads to actual real silence. Because if there's no judgment, what is there? You know, love. What else it could be? Welcome.
Who'd like to share? Sue.
Sorry, it took a while to unmute. Thank you, Nick. That was amazing. When you were talking and explaining the process, if I paid attention to your words and started thinking about them, that was a different experience to if I let your words happen. And when I let your words just happen, it was like I was taking them in and they were meaning something, but I wasn't, it's hard to say, I wasn't thinking about what they ought to mean. They just came and they brought this amazing, it was like I was almost floating on your words. And there was just this amazing sense of love and being. And it was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is basically what happens when the mind is out of the way, because you and I are not separate, but the mind, which is the one who starts the conceptualization, begins with I am something, you see? And then that's what creates the limitation. And therefore, I am this, you are that, you see? But when the mind is out of the way, the words are just happening in consciousness, in all that there is. So you're not really listening to the words. The resonance is there because you and I are the same thing. It's like when the mind is dreaming a dream. Although there is a conversation in the dream between two, that's not true. It's the mind talking to itself because the mind is the one projecting everything. So here we just got out of the mind and just beingness. One of the great advices that I heard Dr. Kenneth Wapnick says to a student of a course, it says, don't try to understand the Course in Miracles. Let the words speak to you. Let them talk to you. They get the mind out of the way. Don't read them trying to understand it. And if you get out of the way, of course, it's what you are, you know?
Who'd like to share? Sarah, take yourself off mute.
Hi, hello, Nick. I thought it was lovely how when you had the internet connection, everyone just went into meditation. There was no noise. Like, can anyone hear Nick? I can't hear anything, which is very representative of the internal thinking as well, of course. So I'm just think I've got a question for you. Part of my yoga training around meditation is you do a counting method, so 1 to 7, 1 to 14, and so on. And then the rule is if you realize you've lost count, you then go back to the beginning. And it sounds really mechanical. I personally find it does actually get me into dropping into the sort of the depth below the counting. But I just wondered how you see it as part of the Course of Miracles approach.
Well, the way I see it is if you do the counting, for example, the question that I would ask you is, why are you doing the counting? What do you think is going to happen in the future as a consequence of the counting? You know, because the invitation ultimately is, and this is where the words actually cannot really go there. The invitation is that you already are. You see, when there's an identification with an individual, then that creates the illusion that I need to do something in order to have an experience. You see, and that is how we overlook the experience itself. You see, that's why eventually one of the lessons that I usually quote from is lesson 189, paragraph 7, which says, just forget everything you ever learned. Just forget everything. Just even forget this course, and with wholly empty-handed come into your God. It's another way of saying, if the mind is trying to get this, just get out of the way. Because right now you cannot deny your experience of being. So the question that I always ask is, when there's a process or something like that, which is perfectly fine for someone who's starting on the journey. I mean, somebody who's very, very hypnotized with the belief I'm a person, I'm the first one to tell them, get a meditation class, or something like that, because they need somehow to. But then there's a point when now the mind is receptive enough to realize that, of course, I am, you see? So if you're doing a process, the question that I ask, okay, why do you need to do a process? What do you think you're going to get, you see, in the future for which you need to do that process? You see, it's kind of overlooking what it already is. And because the mind is so used to even feel with so much concepts about could be enlightenment and all that kind of stuff, it has its ideas. Enlightenment will be when I feel in a particular way. Well, I will no longer have negative thoughts. When life is going to be, and those really, it's overlooking your beingness. You see, you are always being. Right now, you are. You're not even Sarah. That's a name that is given unto you, and you bought it. You see, you are. That's your experience. And because the experience of being a quote unquote human being is pleasure and pain, the mind is always trying to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And it thinks that pain is not spiritual, pleasure is, But the invitation here is that everything is just as it is neutral, So if you're asking me, I don't, right now, this is it. Life is, because that's it. And there are times when I have a hard time going to sleep. Well, yeah, I can do some things just to get to, that seems to can help to get to sleep, but I do not associate them with any kind of spiritual path. There's times that I have a really good night's sleep, and there's times that the mind is going crazy. About a week ago, I had a situation where a very strong feeling of anger came very strong. And I tell you one thing, the mind was trying to sell me. That person did this, and that's why I feel this way. See, that's why you go to lesson number 5, never upset for the reasons I think. Because the reason I am upset is not because somebody has done anything to me, not because the world has done anything to me, but because I believe I'm separate. That's the only reason I can feel upset. That's it. I believe that I'm separate. Therefore, I feel that I'm vulnerable. I'm separate from everything. So I was having that. And you know what? All I can remember is what Jesus says. Nothing means anything, just be. But I wasn't doing it to get rid of the feeling. You see, this is a trick here. I'm just simply beingness. Lo and behold, the next day, the feeling was gone, and I was feeling an overwhelming sense of love. But again, if the feeling would have stayed there, that would have been fine too. It's kind of like how life is a constant movement. It's always movement, it doesn't matter. But if I simply be, then all movement is welcome. Love doesn't reject anything. All movement is welcome. If I don't label it anger, then it's just energy, dense energy. And then in other moments, the energy seems to be, you see? So this is kind of how I see it. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's the only thing that I can offer right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
we've come to the end of our time together. Thank you, Nick, and take yourself off mute and show your appreciation to Nick.
Thank you, Nick. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys.
Wonderful
Thank you
words.
so much. Thanks a lot.